Hello everyone, very good morning, team. So we will resume with where we stopped yesterday. So in yesterday's session, we started with the pre-screening questions and the disqualification questions, right? So if I just quickly go back to the um, Excel. So in yesterday session, we started with pre-screening questions and disqualification questions. We had a quick introduction about what exactly are the pre-screening questions and the disqualification questions. And then we created a couple of pre-screening questions and we are it to create the disqualification questions, right? So before I proceed further, any doubts or questions, team, on the pre-screening or pre-screening questions or any other topics which we covered yesterday? Okay. So next, we'll start with, the navigation to create the navigation to access the full screen questions. It's going to setup and maintenance. Imagine you're joining from one more device. Is it? Imagine, can you able to hear me? Okay.
Yes, actually, my system was not working, so that's why I joined on phone.
No issues, Himanshu.
Now I switched to laptop back.
So I'll just wait for recruiting and candidate experience. And here I'll just go to candidate job application and then I'll change it to all tasks. Once I change to all tasks, I can able to see the question library. And here I'll just go to the recruiting and then we can able to see all the pre-screen questions. So under you, we created a folder called UNO and under UNO, we created PS for pre-screening questions and DQ for disqualification questions. So these are the three different questions which we have added. So here, we created three questions. First question is what's your total experience with Oracle Fusion HCM? And if the response is like 6 plus, then, we will display this question, are you Oracle certified? Within responses, yes or no. And then we'll choose we have created one more question. Choose the list of modules which you have worked on. And then for this, we have created checkbox based responses with the minimum response of two values. Okay, so these are the questions which we have created. Hmm. And we'll just create one last question, which is we'll create if the candidate has choose yes for Oracle certified, then we wanted to ask them to upload the attachment of the certificate. So what I'll do is question code, I'll just change it to 4 active. Please upload certificate. Okay. And then response type, I will just have it as uh, text. Okay. So I'm going to have this as text. And then the controlling question, I'm going to change it to are you Oracle certified? And then the response is yes. If the candidate has choose this yes, then they have to upload. Okay. So I just created the response type as text because it's just like an attachment, right? So I'll just create it as a response type as plain text box with allow attachments. And now I'll just click on save. And here, if you notice, just like, in other screens in the content library, we can also provide translations to these contents here. Okay? Because these are the questions which would be faced by the external candidates, right? So if we wanted to provide translations, we can again click on edit and then you will see this translation editor, the globe icon here. So once you click on the globe icon, you can able to provide your translations for the question. And then once you provide translations for your questions, and then you will see the globe icon again under the responses. So you can just provide your translations for the responses. So let's say here I have four different responses, right? So I have to click on each one and then click on the globe icon to upload the translation. I have to just click on each and everything and then I have to provide the translation. So here, right, team, let's say in real-time situations, what will happen is customers may have hundreds of, pre-screening questions and the disqualification questions. Okay? And then let's say for 100 questions on an average, let's assume there are four choices. Okay. So it's 400 lines, it's like 500 lines of, data we have to create it. So this is going to be a huge task. So what we normally do is, in such scenarios, we will load the data using the HDL. So we load the data using HDL. HDL is a functionality through which we can load the data in bulk into the application. And one more advantage of loading the data in bulk into the application is in the same load we can also provide the translations as well. We don't need to provide translations again in the system. We can also load the translations into the system using the HTMLs. Okay. And in one of the customer, what we did is the customer actually went live. And then as part of our support, when we went in, the customer said that, Ravi, we need to provide translations for all the 400 odd questions which was created. So there were some already 400 different pre-screening questions for different contexts. So the customer said that we just need to, add the translations. And then the customer had the presence in multiple countries. So they had to load three different languages. So it was, what we did is we did create a, HDLs and then we loaded the translations alone using the HDLs. It made the job easier. Okay. So this is how you can able to provide your translations. So now we have just completed how to create a pre-screening question. So any doubt on questions, team, on pre-screening questions? Okay. So next we'll see how to create a disqualification question. So I'll just choose a DQ folder and then I'll create a disqualification question here. I'll put the code as 1 instead of PS, I'm going to put DQ. So we are gonna use the most standard question, which is legal qualifier are you 18 years of age or older? Hmm? And then I wanna respond as single choice, and I wanna choose this score question checkbox, and then here in the question classification I'm gonna choose this as disqualification. Hmm? So I'll choose it as disqualification, and then I'm gonna add the responses as yes. So now that I see everything is same as how we created the pre-screening questions, right? But how do we differentiate or how do we tell that for if the response is no, then the system should be disqualified. The candidate should be disqualified. So how do we give instructions to the system about this? So that is the trickiest part here. So basically how the disqualification works is so the disqualification basically works with the help of the scores. Okay. So the total score of all your disqualification questions, if it falls in negative, then the candidate is disqualified. That means, let's say I have DQ1. Okay. So let's assume that I have some 10 disqualification questions. Or to make it simple, I just keep it 5. Okay. So the total of all the scores, right? Okay. The total of all the scores, if it falls on negative, then the candidate is disqualified. Okay. So let's say, in first question, the candidate would have answered the correct one and then he would have got one score. And then let's assume, for DQ3, it is like, the candidate did not answer the correct question, hence he got -10. Okay? And then he would have got like, correct answer. So the sum equal to, right? If it falls in negative, then the candidate is disqualified. Okay? Let's say if the total score is, positive, then the candidate is treated as unqualified. Okay? So how do we normally handle that, right? So when we configure this kind of question, disqualification questions, right, we give the negative value, the negative value, right? It has to be the maximum total possibility of, all the disqualification question scores. Okay. So let's say if the candidate answers correct, then if I may give him like, 10 points, okay, 10 points. And if the candidate answers strongly, then if I give him -5, then if you see the total score is just like, minus the, it is still on the positive, whereas the candidate should be disqualified, right? So that's why we normally what we do is here instead of -5, we give them -50. So even if the candidate, chooses wrong answer in either one of the question, the candidate would be disqualified. Okay? So this is how, the disqualification score works. Is it clear to you?
So it means like all the answers should be positive, even if like if there is one single negative answer, he will be disqualified. Correct?
That's correct. Yes. That's the see, all these 5 are disqualification questions. We are not gonna check the score of, the pre-screen questions. That's not gonna come here. Only the disqualification question score has to be negative for the candidate to be disqualified. See, there are 5 disqualification questions. If a candidate fails on either one, then the candidate has to be disqualified. Is it clear,
Yeah, it's
Anupama,
clear.
Himanshu?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes, yes.
perfect. Okay. So what we'll do is I'll just go back. So now for yes, I'm just gonna give like, 10, and for no, I'm gonna give us -100. Okay. So here team, in this course, the box, this particular field can accept both positive characters as well as negative characters as well. Okay. So it will accept both positive and negative characters both. Once it is done, I'll just click on save and close. Before that, let me zoom. Okay. So I've just created one disqualification question. Okay. Let us create one more disqualification question. Give me some example, team. Some kind of, example of disqualification question.
Like, are you qualified to work in US?
Have you been convicted of any crime?
Okay. Have you okay. Here I'm gonna have a -100. Give it 10. So we'll create this last question. This are you working? Yes. Let's assume this position is for yes. So now we have what we have done is we have just created 3 different disqualification questions. Okay. And if if the candidate fails on either one of this disqualification question, then the candidate would be rejected from the job application. Okay. So any doubts or questions on the disqualification question here?
No.
And one last thing we have to do is edit the pre-screening. I'm just going to change the question classification to pre-screening question added automatically.
So this means when the requisition is being created, these questions will be automatically added to the requisition.
Yes, exactly, Anupam.
So
We don't need to manually do anything.
okay, so do the user get the option to delete or not use this question?
No, if it is added automatically, then the user will not have that option.
Okay.
So now that we have just saw the pre-screening questions, right? What we'll do is we'll just quickly create a requisition and see how this pre-screening questions are getting associated to the requisition. So I'll just quickly go to hiring. I'm just gonna do a quick requisition creation with using an existing requisition. And I'm just gonna I'm not gonna talk about any of the sections. Okay, I'll just directly skip to the pre-screening questions. So this is the questionnaire section in the requisition. Okay. And here, if you notice, these are the questions which we have created. Okay. So the 3 disqualification questions which we have created, it is added automatically here. And you will see only the possible score here. I mean the positive score. Okay. The negative score will not be shown here. Okay. And then next you have the pre-screening questions which we have added. So the pre-screening question, since we did not choose any context like internal or external. In the context, we choose the visibility as both. Okay, that's why these were added to the internal pre-screening questions, and the same is added to the external pre-screening questions. Okay? So these are the different questions which we have added, and then here, if you notice, it shows the maximum possible score. So the maximum possible score, it is showing as 40. That's because we have okay, there's one more disqualification question which is added by someone else. Okay. So here, if you notice, we don't have any option to edit, delete anything here, because these are pre-screening questions added automatically. Let's say if we have choose the classification as pre-screening questions added by user. Okay. In such case, how do we add these questions here? So you might be asking, you might have this doubt, right? Ravi, how do we add the pre-screening questions or disqualification pre-screening questions, which is not, with the classification as added by user? So what you have to do is we have to choose first which, section we wanted to add, external or internal, and then you will see this box here, add question. Here you can able to see all the questions here. You can search using the keyword. For example, I can just type selling. It will show list of all the questions which has this word selling here. Okay. Or I can search using the question code ORG_APP. You will see the question code is searched here, or you can search with uh, the folder name. Yeah, the folder name is not available for search, but question text and question code is available. So let's say I choose one question here. So once I choose a question, pre-screening question, the question is added to the external candidate. And then there are two extra options which you get. One is like, require response. Okay. So if you want to set this question as mandate, you can just set it here. Okay. And one more option is like, you get to see this delete button. Whereas you will not see the delete button if the pre-screening question is added automatically. Okay. So that's the difference between, a pre-screening questions added automatically and pre-screening questions added by user. And just to recap, the disqualification questions cannot be done in this way. Okay? So the disqualification questions cannot be manually added to the requisition. It has to be automatically added. So based on the context, the disqualification questions will be automatically added. So any doubts or questions of our team on the pre-screen questions and the disqualification questions?
So all the questions like pre-screening and disqualification, all of them sit together in the same um, page, right?
Yes. The
Like
candidate
they'll,
basically doesn't know which is a disqualification question, which is a pre-screening question.
and he'll not be able to see the scores as well, right? It
Yes.
is only for the, okay. Second thing is, we saw one disqualification question that got added, right?
Yeah, that's one.
So this can happen in a real time scenario as well, right?
Yeah, very true. This will happen in the real-time scenario.
Right. So because we created only three and this fourth one came from somewhere. Like, can we identify, like, if
You see, you can definitely identify by going to the
can we
questions.
analyze and see,
Yeah,
like, if where
yeah,
where
true,
this
sure,
came from? Yeah.
sure. But that's why, like, in the strategies, right, the pre-screen question strategy, that's the first point I mentioned. We need to have a proper question strategy before we start creating the questions. Otherwise, this is the kind of scenarios we'll end up landing with. The recruiter will go and create a requisitions. Okay. And recruiters will, when they create the requisition, they think, okay, we need to add this, as a disqualification question. So they go and, create the questions, disqualification question without defining any context. Then it gets added. So,
But that can only be done if the recruiter have the recruiter admin role,
yes.
right? Otherwise, he'll not be able to
Yeah,
access that.
he will not able to access it, but any user with the access to pre-screening questions, right? They can able
Right.
to open.
Right.
So I'll just copy the code, and if I just go to the disqualification, okay, this is the one. So let's say I just click on edit. Once I click on edit for this particular disqualification question, right? If you see, you get these options, edit question, like, select edit type. Here you get to see two options. Create a new version of the question, update existing question. Whereas if I just go to our folder, our questions, right? When I click on edit, I don't see that option. But whereas, the other questions, right, not just this question, if I go to any other questions and click on it, I get to see this option here. Any idea why, it is coming for this question, but why not our question?
Because these are the seeded question, right?
No, these are also customly created.
Okay.
Since you asked that, since you said that point, there is no seeded pre-screening and disqualification questions which comes from Oracle. Everything has to be customly created. We talked about this in yesterday's session. Any guess, team? See, the reason why we can able to see that here, this particular option, and why not in the our questions is because these are existing questions, first thing. Okay. And the main reason why we get to see that pop up for this particular questions alone is because there are already, these questions has been used by, some requisitions. Okay. That's why you get to see this one. Whereas our questions, it was not used in any requisitions. See, even this requisition, it is still in draft. It is not even in draft. Okay. It is still in some buffer pages only. The moment I click on save and close, that's when this will be in draft. Okay. So let's say, for example, let me just quickly check if the approvals are bypassed. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to submit this job requisition. Once the job requisition is submitted, I can able to see this is submitted. Okay. So now if I just go to our primary screen questions, and now if I just try to click on edit, it's still not okay. This is still not visible in the career site. Okay, let me just do the posting once. Tim, let's not worry about this, what I'm doing now. Anyways, we're going to see everything in detail now. It just takes some time for the system to update. Okay. So once, the requisition is posted on the career site, then, we will also see the same questions now. So now let us see what is the, the options which we get to see. So here, when I click on edit question, right, we get to see two options: create new version of the question or update existing. Okay. So what is the difference between this? Anyone wants to take a guess of like, what's going to happen between each of this?
Yep. So in the first one, when we say create a new version of the question, it will allow to copy the same question.
Okay.
And maybe we can also change the answers for it and even the question text, and we can add more context to it as well.
It does the same for both the options. Even if you choose say any one of the option, you can able to do that. But what is the difference between it? See, the reason why I'm little excited to hear this answer from you is because you both of you have some experience in tuition, right?
Right. I guess we can change the code in the new version, and we cannot change the code in the update existing question.
No, the code cannot be changed on either version of it. Once a question is created, the code is created. We cannot change the code because the code is the unique ID, unique object which is used to link this question with all the requisitions.
Okay.
I think in the
Third,
update the existing question, we are updating the current whatever the question existing question is, we are updating it, and basically we will not be able to we will not have the previous question. It will be updated by a new question.
Okay.
Yeah, so we basically we will lose the original question. This is what I think the existing question will do.
Uh, kind of, no problem. But let me just give an example of how is it. Okay. So let's take, this particular question. See, the reason why I'm stressing so much on this kind of minimal topics is right, these are the topics which you cannot able to find in any of the documents, even whether it could be like your Oracle documents or anywhere, right? This kind of information you will not able to find it in any of the documents. And these are the kind of questions which you will get when you start working on your implementation. When you give a demo to your customer, the customer asks, right, Ravi, what is the purpose of this question? So if we give some, wrong responses, whereas they would have known the purpose of this, two questions from Oracle or from somewhere else, they would be testing our knowledge. And if we give them any wrong answers, right, then, we lose our credibility there. That's the only difference. Okay. So now we have this question, and this, let's assume we have some candidates. Next one, candidate. Let's assume there are some 5 candidates. Okay. For all these 5 candidates, they will have the same question. Okay. So if I choose this option, first option, update existing question, right? Update existing question, then I'm gonna change this question from I'm just changing this question. So then all these questions would be changed to this question for all these candidates. Okay. These are like, past job applications.
Okay, so it means like the changes will be applicable retrospectively.
Yes. Okay. This is like, past job applications. Okay. So now the same thing this is all the future job applications. Okay. And if I just use create a new version, and then for this candidates, it would be like this. If I use a new version. So let's say I change this question, right? And from the time I make the changes, all the new job applications, they will see the question as this. And then for the past applicants, the question will remain like this. Okay? It will not go and change. Basically, it's like, as equal as, you correct and update in the classic pages. So that's how it works. Okay? So after this, I created a new version, and then going forward, all the new applicants, they will have this question as like this. And for the past, they will have like this. Is it clear?
Uh, can we have, do we have separate permissions or privileges through which we can, control this, that the even the admin should not be able to update the question once it is activated?
Then in such case, what we have to do is, we have to disable this edit button.
Okay, the whole functionality itself will go then.
Yes. And it will not only disable for this recruit module, it will be the same for all these modules.
Oh my God. Okay.
Okay. So this is how, the pre-screening and the disqualification thing works. So any doubts or questions so far, team?
So when the scoring is done, so can we have something like uh, say if someone is disqualified, then they are, say this is the first part of the application itself, that they are answering these questions, and say I just say that okay, I'm not eligible to work in this country, or I'm not
Okay.
18 years of age, which is the
Mhm.
qualifying age for starting work. So my application would end there and there itself, and it should not go ahead, because then there is no point for me to fill up all my details, and then anyways I would be disqualified, right?
Sorry, I didn't get you. Can you come again, please?
So I it would tell you, I had one client wherein it was an airline, so they had one simple disqualification question, that do you possess the license of flying. So
Mm-hmm.
if you say no, then they won't allow you to even submit your application any further.
Okay. That we don't have, that functionality we don't have it in ORC.
Okay, so that cannot be done. So they'll still be able to.
Yes, yes. See,
Okay.
even if they mark an wrong, disqualified responses, right? The candidate will still be allowed to complete the job application.
Okay.
See, okay, it's like building your database. That recruiters can see that these candidates are disqualified,
Right.
and then maybe for this position they could be disqualified. Maybe for some other position. When I do a candidate search, I can see the candidate response candidates, right? So maybe for some other position, the candidate would be eligible.
So in the, say someone has entered something like this, and then in the uh, some companies are like that, where they are bound to give some rejection reason back to the candidate. Now if they have answered the disqualification question,
Mm-hmm.
right, to score a negative, can we use that data in the rejection message, like in the recruiting content library?
Yes, we can definitely do that. We can do that. But we will see that in detail once we go to candidate selection process,
Okay.
because that way it will be useful for, it will be more relevant.
Okay, so like the way we will configure this is like, we will have a candidate selection process, and then in that we will configure the move action. Say if disqualification question is this, then we'll reject the candidate, and the rejection message will go, right?
Yes.
No, that is the way how the functionality will work. I was just asking, like in the message template itself, the correspondence that will be sent to candidate, can we show uh, like use this particular disqualification question and the answer of it, saying, telling the candidate that, okay, this following question you have answered it this way, that's why you have been disqualified or rejected.
Mm. No, no, we cannot do that.
Okay. Can in the recruiting content library, like I should also self explore more. Um, so on such, like, okay, but I guess that will come up when we start on CSP and things.
Yeah, that's
I was going to I was thinking, like, if in the assessments, like someone gets a negative score, right, even in interview phase, then can we show that score in rejection message? But that's okay.
See, we
We
can,
will see.
if you really wanted to show those details, right? You can, I mean, if you really wanted to show those details to the candidate, right? Then what you can do is you can just, create some custom reports and you can share it to the customer candidates.
Okay.
No,
That's the
Ravi,
only
but
way.
in real practice, do we do that?
See, in real practice, as a best practice, we will not be sharing the
Not do that, yeah.
disqualification. See,
Basically, the candidate will not know that even after filling up the, pre-screening and disqualification question, he will not be knowing that although he is going forward with the, with the workflow of filling up all the details, but he will not know that he is already been disqualified because he does not fulfill the requirement, correct?
correct,
Like,
exactly.
yeah, okay.
Sometimes it is not needed for the candidate to be displayed with those details.
Hmm.
See, what if the candidate knows that he's been rejected because of this particular reason, right? See, if the candidate really wants to give a try, what the candidate does, they apply to the requisition using some other email ID and make sure they give the right appropriate responses to the disqualification questions. That will hamper the process of it itself.
The authenticity of disqualification question.
Yeah, it's like giving the candidates, it's like doing an open book exam. So
Right.
Right. Okay, I have one question. So we identified this disqualification question that came into our uh, uh, in that page, but we cannot delete it. So after identifying, how can we remove it from our existing requisition?
okay, so let's say we have some question which came up, right? Which is created by someone else, but it has just added to our requisition. Yeah, just like this disqualification question which we just saw. Yeah, yeah. Are you legally do you have the legal rights to work in this? So in such scenarios, what we ideally do is we just click on edit, and then we just update the existing question, and then either we inactivate it or we define we change the context. Here if you see, the context is now we cannot able to change it. Okay. So what I'll do is click on edit, create a new version of the question, and then I will add some context here. See here, if you see, the context is showing us all. That means that all the requisition will have this question. You got it, right?
Right, I got it.
So all the requisitions will have this disqualification question. So I'll just add this questions here. So basically, it depends on how the organization process is set up at. Okay. So some customers, they will have a separate recruiting administrator team, okay, who will handle all this kind of things. And some customers, they will go to the service partners and things like that.
Okay, so for this kind of issue, they are not going to create, the business is not going to create a ticket, and this ticket is not going to come to the support team.
I mean, if they have a supporting system like that, then they will, if they once they create the ticket, it will come to the supporting. That's what I said,
Okay.
It
Okay,
depends
okay.
on the processes.
So if it comes to you, then what are you going to do? You are going to deactivate this?
See, I will not gonna deactivate this, but what I'll do is, I'll just see which business has requested this one.
Okay.
So I'll just look at that, and then accordingly, I'll just update the questions accordingly.
Okay. No, I was looking for like what will be the resolution for, because I'm pretty sure this can be a very common issue if the questions are not categorized properly.
Yeah, that's true.
Like you mentioned in the spread in your PPT, like
Yes, Anupama.
I was just asking like what will be the resolution from your end? Like if it comes to you, although you mentioned that you will talk to the business and you'll see like where exactly
Yeah.
like maybe you'll modify it or something like that.
See, this
But
situation has came to me a lot of times. Okay, so ideally, what I do is, based on the urgency of the requisition, which has to be, let's say, the recruiter says that, Ravi, I have already identified a candidate, and I need to roll out the offer. In order to roll out the offer, I need this requisition to be created. So what I do is, I just, make this question as inactive. Okay, I make this question as inactive, and then I'll just click on save and close, and then I'll ask the recruiter to complete the job requisition. Okay, creations. Once they create the requisition, and once it is triggered for approvals, I'll just change the status back to active, and then I will proceed with the business to ensure the proper structure of the question is defined.
Okay, so once it goes to the approval workflow, this question will not come like pop again.
Yeah, yeah,
You
it
know,
will
like
not pop up. Yes.
it will not. Okay, 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 okay.
So that's how I basically do that. Okay. So with this team, we have just completed the pre-screening questions and the disqualification questions. Okay. So next we'll move on to the job requisition. So let me just start the PPT. Okay. So we'll start with the job applications. So as part of the job applications, what we're going to do is first we'll see a quick introduction about the job requisition management configuration, and then we have something called as requisition templates. So we'll understand what is an requisition templates, and there are three types of requisition templates. We'll see what are those three types of requisition templates, and then we have sections and fields inside the templates. We'll see what all those. And then we will also talk something from an HCM experience design studio from the customizations perspective. Like if you wanted to customize, how do we customize it and everything. And then we will configure job requisition templates. Okay. So we'll configure the requisition templates. We'll see how to create the templates, everything. And one type of the requisition template is standalone template. So there are certain rules and strategies when it comes to the standalone template. So we'll see what are those rules and strategies. Okay. So these are the topics which we are going to see from the requisition management. So to start with, okay, so the job requisition management, like, see, whenever a vacancy is identified, okay, so in order to fulfill a vacancy, a job requisition is created. Okay? Because in order to hire a candidate to fill a vacancy, we need a requisition. So hence we create a requisitions. Okay? So there are two major decisions which has to be taken, when it comes to the requisition creations. Okay? The first decision, okay, how much of information will the manager has to complete. Okay, so if a hiring manager is creating a requisition, how much information the hiring manager has to complete. Okay, so we have like minimal or full details. Okay, so if it is minimal, like only the minimal informations the hiring manager has to enter, and then once the hiring manager enters those minimal informations, once they click on save and close, it will go to the hands of the recruiter. So that's the first decision which the customers has to decide if the hiring manager has to create minimal requisition or full requisition, or no no access to creating of the requisition itself. Okay. So that's the first decision. And the second decision is how are the requisitions to be created. Yeah. So there are multiple ways through which we can create a requisitions. We can create requisitions using templates, using jobs, using positions. Okay. And then we can create something called as blank requisition, and we can create a requisition taking a copy of an existing requisition. There are multiple ways through which we can create a requisitions. So the customers has to decide on how what are the options through which they wanted to create a requisition. So let's say the customer says that, Ravi, we don't want any requisition to be created using jobs or templates. Then what we have to do is we have to remove the appropriate, the privileges. For example, we have a privilege called initiate job requisition using job, initiate job requisition using template. So these are the two privileges which we have to remove from the respective, custom roles which we have created, like, the hiring manager roles or the recruiter roles. So once we do that, then the recruiters will not able to see those options. So what we'll do is before we go any further about the templates and everything, right? Let us first log in into the application and see how to create a job requisition. So for that purpose, what I'll do is let me just reset a password of a recruiter, and then we'll log in as a recruiter. For some reasons, we we everyone use Curtis Petty. I don't know for why, but for some reasons, we always use Curtis Petty user right from for the last I don't remember, like right from the time we started the trainings. We always use Curtis Petty for all our transactions.
Yeah, actually, there is a reason behind it on just because this particular Curtis Fitty, even when we join some those Oracle trainings, right, they also use the same person, and in their activities list also they have these two three users only: Curtis Fitty, Conrad Hagen, and there is one Tony something.
Tony,
So
Tony Sharp. So no, not Tony Sharp.
Tony Callum.
Yeah.
So everyone
See, that's what
is
even see. I am an Oracle certified trainer as well. So
right.
even in our Oracle session, for some reason, like, it's been like, very long time. We always use Curtis Witty. I don't know why. Maybe we like this name very much, or like, the basic understanding is that, this user will always have like, the human resource specialist with visual data, recruiter with visual data, recruiting administrator, recruiting manager, all the application roles. So this user will always have like, in all the demo instance, Curtis Fitty user will have all the access. That's why we always, go and use the Curtis Fitty user. Okay. So let's start with, the job requisitions. Okay. So before we see how to create requisitions, right? We know the navigations. Okay. So the recruiter, if they wanted to access the job requisitions, the navigations would be my client group. You have to go to my client group and hiring. For the hiring managers, it would be like, my team. And once they go to my team, they will see hiring here. There's no hiring manager role, and don't see the hiring here. So once we go inside hiring, we can able to see the requisitions. And by default, this is like, Oracle standard, configuration, which is like, this particular filter would be enabled. Okay? Which filters all the requisitions for which, this particular user, Curtis Petty, is either a recruiter or an hiring manager or a collaborator. Okay? So those requisitions are by default, displayed here. Let's say if you wanted to see all the requisitions for which this particular user have access to, then I just have to remove the filter, and then I see now it shows 128 requisitions. So before I go in detail, right, into the requisitions, this is in the requisitions page. If you wanted to search requisitions, or if you wanted to sort requisitions, you can able to sort using this particular options. You can sort applications using the application count or the creation date, or we have something called as prospects. Hmm. So what is a prospect? How to, what is the difference about it? We'll see that, later. Team, I'm sorry, just give me 1 minute, please.
Himanshu, are you on LinkedIn?
No.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, so sorry, miss. Okay. So we have something called as prospects. Let's not worry about it for now. We'll see that little later point of time. And then you can sort requisitions using the requisition title A to Z or Z to A. These are the different sorting options. And next we have filters here. If you wanted to filter requisitions, you can just click on the filter and you will see a lot of different options through which you can filter the requisitions. And most important filter, which is like, the inactive requisitions. So once a requisition is filled, okay, once a requisition is marked as filled, then, the requisition becomes inactive and then it will not be displayed here. If you wanted to see inactive requisitions, you have to select this checkbox so that you will see those inactive requisitions here. And next, like, you can sort requisitions by the phase and by the state. Okay. So phases and state is like, basically once you create a requisition, the first phase of the requisition would be in draft. Okay. You see, it says draft in progress. Okay. So once it is in draft, right, once you submit the requisition, it will be in approvals. If I just click on approval, there are no requisitions which is in approvals. So it will be like, approvals in progress. Once the approvals are completed, then it would be open. The phase of the requisition will become as open, and then it will be in job formatting. So once the requisition is approved, it will be in the job formatting stage. It will be like, job formatting in progress. Okay. Once you complete your job formatting or once you post the requisition, right, it will be in posting in progress. Once you post the requisitions or once you open the requisitions for sourcing, then the requisitions will be open. And then here it would be like, open not posted, open posted, and then you will see all these ones. Okay. And then let's say open expired. There are no requisitions with expired. So you can filter the requisitions using the phase and the state. Okay. So let's say if it is suspended, if I just filter suspended, okay, there are no requisitions here. So based on the filters, you can able to see those requisitions here. And then you have other options like, you can filter requisitions using the hiring manager or the organization primary location, requisition type, and related to pipeline. So these are the filters which we have. Let's say if you ask me, Ravi, are these the only filters which we have? No, these are not the only filters. We can add few filters as well. This, if you notice this gear icon, this is the personalized filter. Once I click on it, you can just configure it for self or you can configure it for others. So you have options like, requisition title, recruiter, job family, job function, business unit, department, job. Okay. So these are the additional filters which we have. So once I click on save, I will see those additional filters here. Recruiter. Okay. So these are the options, filters which we have. Okay. And if you ask me, Ravi, can we add any other filters apart from this? No, we cannot able to do that. These are the only standard filters which we have, and we cannot add any other custom filters. Okay. So we have raised a couple of, there have been a lot of requests to the Oracle stating that, we should able to see one filter to search requisitions using the flex wheels. Okay. But Oracle said like, it's in the future releases. It's been planned for the future releases. So this is all about, the requisition screen team. Okay. And next, if we wanted to create a requisition, okay, before we go create the requisition here, if you notice, all the requisitions will have this, parameters here. Okay. So the first line of the requisition shows the requisition title, and this number here, right? It represents the requisition number. Okay. And then the second line represents, the phase. The first object is the phase of the requisition, and the second is the status of the requisition. Okay. And then the third line represents if the requisition is in standard or pipeline. Okay. So we'll see what is in standard requisition, what is in pipeline requisition. We'll see that in some time. And then the fourth line represents like, the recruiting location. So this particular requisition is created for, Redwood City, California, United States. So these are the options which you will see against the requisition. Just trying to see any requisitions with multiple locations. Yeah. So here, if you notice, so It says San Mateo, California, United States, and two more. So what is this two more?
Two
So
more locations.
yeah, there are two more work locations which has been added to the requisition. Okay, and if I wanted to see those locations, right, what I have to do is, as a recruiter or as a any stakeholder, right, I have to go inside the requisition, and then I have to go to the details tab, and I have to go to the requisition structure to see all the locations. So this is again one more request which we have that to display all the locations in this particular screen itself. So this is again another request which we have put across to Oracle, and we just got a response stating that it will be there in future releases.
So when you say searching the requisition on the basis of flex field, what do you mean by that?
We can create flex fields inside the requisitions. So you
Okay.
guys are aware of what is a flex field?
Yeah.
Himanshu, how about you?
Yes.
Okay. See, we can create flex fields for the requisitions. Okay. So in the requisitions level, we can create flex fields. And if you wanted to search requisitions using the flex fields, we don't have an option currently. So this is one request which we have put across to Oracle, giving us
Can you
the
give an example like what kind of flex field? Because it's not basically, I mean, honestly, it's not clicking. Like,
okay, 1 second. If I just go to the details tab. We don't have any flex fields. See, here we can create one custom field. Okay. Let's say approved by internal audit team. I will just create one flex field here, and that particular flex field would be displayed here. Yeah, and then I will have responses like yes or no. Okay. And if I wanted to filter by this particular flex field, we don't have an option. Maybe not to, we can see in detail about this flex fields, right? Maybe at the end of our training sessions, right? Once we go to the job requisition flex fields, we'll see that in detail. Let's not, worry about that for now. So just give me 1 second. So this is how it would be. And next we have is applications and prospects. Okay. So applications, as the name says, right, this application shows, the count shows list of active job applications we have against this particular requisition. Okay. Now the next question comes up is, Ravi, what is prospects? Okay. So the prospects are they can become a future job applications, or they can become an future inactive candidates. Okay. Let's say, for example, an internal employee refers some candidate to this particular requisition. Okay. So that particular candidate will be stored as a prospect in the application. Okay. So let's say Himanshu has referred Ravi to one of the requisition in his company. Okay. Then what will happen is Ravi profile would be created as a prospect in the career portal. Okay. And then Ravi gets an email stating that Himanshu has referred you to so and so position. Would you like to complete the job application? Then until and unless Ravi goes and completes the job application, right? Ravi profile would be tagged as prospect. Once I go to the once I click on the email, the links, and once I go and complete my job application, then Ravi's profile will be moved from prospect to job applications. Okay? And then the prospect count becomes 0. Okay? Let's say Ravi doesn't want to apply to this requisition. He feels that the requisition is not a good fit. Then he can mention his preferences of not interested in the email, or in the application in the link, so that the prospect profile would be made inactive. So this is how the prospect looks like. Okay. And then let's say once we go inside the job requisition, right? I just click on this requisition. Once I go inside the requisition, you will see this, 5 different parameters. Okay. So we know what is an active applications. All the candidates who are supplied to the requisitions and who are active. Now, next you see this one called as new to be reviewed. There are 4 candidates. What is this new to be reviewed? This represents, the first phase and first state of the candidate selection process. Let's not worry about this again too much. We'll see that, in the next topics. So the first phase and first step of the candidate selection process, there are 4 candidates. Hence, you see that count here. And then the number of hires, it shows 0. That means that, there are no hires, and this is an pipeline requisition. So let me just take some other requisition.
If an internal candidate apply for the position, he will also be a prospect?
No, if the internal candidate applies to the position, you will become an active candidate. So what I'll do is I'm going to take this particular requisition. If I just go inside the requisition, I see there are 6 active applicants and there are no candidates in the first phase and first step. Okay. Just give me 1 second. Let me just give me 1 more minute. Let me just take some other requisitions. Oh, okay. So I take this particular requisition. So there are 1 candidate who is currently in first phase and first state of the requisition, and in total there are 5 active job applications. And then if you see, it is 0 highest out of 1. That means the number of openings in the requisition is 1, and currently there are 0 hires. Okay? If the number of openings is mentioned as 10, then you will see 0 hires out of 10. Okay? And then we have something called as unconfirmed applications. What is this unconfirmed applications? Is, let's say if the candidate has applied to the requisition, okay, and then in the last page after entering the e-signature details, the candidate clicks on submit button, and then the last step would be the candidate will get an one-time password to their email ID, and then they have to enter the one-time password so that their profile will be landing in the active job applications. Let's say due to some reasons, the candidate stops the application process there. Okay? Without, he completes the e-signature and submits, but, he has not verified his, account. In that cases, those candidates would come under the unconfirmed applications. Okay. So, and then any referrals, you can able to see them as prospects here, referred prospects. Okay. So once this referred prospects completes the job application, then this candidate will go and sit into the active applications. So this is how, the metrics which we have inside the requisition. Before looking into other sections, right, let us quickly create one requisition, and then we'll see what are the different fields which we have. So once I click on the add button, we will be landing on the create job requisition page. So we have multiple sections. In precise, we have 13 different sections, okay, which we have to enter or fill in order to create a requisition. So the first section, which is the how. Okay? So this is where we choose what is the requisition type. So we have 2 types of requisitions, standard and pipeline. Okay? These 2 are, the Oracle seeded values, and we cannot customize this, lookup. So basically you cannot add a third value to this recruiting type. So we can have standard pipeline, and you can rename the standard and pipeline. That is up to our customer's requirement. But what is the difference between standard and pipeline? Standard requisition, as the name says, these are standard. You create a requisition to fill in vacancy. Okay. So you create the requisition, identify the candidate, offer the candidate, onboard the candidate. Okay, that's standard requisition. Now, what is in pipeline? Let's say, I may get some, requirements, in your future date. But, or let's say I have submitted some, project proposals. And for that particular project proposal, I wanted to start building the candidate pipeline. Or I just wanted to start building up, the candidates, for one of the future anticipated position. Or let's say there are some requisitions which are very commonly, which we get with a very common or like regular skill sets. Let's say, for example, in one of my customer, they use this pipeline requisitions very effectively. What they do is like, they hire a lot of Java developers with, JSF and structs, these combinations, Java, JSF and structs. Okay. So what they do is like, they will always have one pipeline requisition called as Java developer with, JSF and structs. And then they keep, adding all the candidates into them, and candidates keep applying to the same requisition. Let's say tomorrow, once they get a new requisition for Java with, JSF and structs, and they would have already identified, the candidate in the pipeline requisition. So what they do is like, they just, associate this candidate to the new job application, and then they directly proceed with the, offer. Because in pipeline requisition, we cannot create offers. So we'll see that in detail once we go to the candidate selection process. So once I choose the recruiting type, next we have this use. So this is the place where we defined how we wanted to create the requisition. Okay, these are the 5 different options which we have. We can create requisition using requisition templates or position, job, existing requisition, and blank requisition. So here, let's say the customer says that, Ravi, we don't want recruiters to create blank requisition, then we just remove this privilege from the custom board. Okay? And similarly, all the other details. So based on the option which you choose here, your remaining fields gets changed. For example, since I use the template here, right, I have to choose what is the recruiting type. And then based on the recruiting type, I get to see the templates here. Based on the location, I get to see the templates. So let's say if I choose position, then I have to choose the business unit, and then all the positions inside the business units would be displayed. Let's say if I don't choose a business unit, then I get to see all the positions in all the business units. Let's see. I just choose this position, then automatically the corresponding business unit would be automatically populated. So that either way it works. Either you can first choose the business unit and then system will display all the positions in that business unit, or you can just directly, search the position so that, the corresponding business unit will be displayed. And then similarly, you have job. You can search jobs here. And then if you want to create a requisition using an existing requisition, you can able to do that. And here, the very common question which you may get, in your interviews is when you choose existing requisition, okay, will you able to see the requisitions only for which you have access to, or you can able to see all the requisitions? This would be your standard question, and the response is like, we can able to see the requisitions only for which we have access to. We cannot able to see all the requisitions. And last option which we have is the blank requisition. What will happen is here, like, the requisition would be blank, and we have to enter all the details. So these are the 5 different options through which we can create a requisition. So what I'll do is for our purpose, we create requisition using an position. Okay. I'll just use the position and the business unit. Okay. So now I'll just click on continue. So once I click on continue, we have the next section, which is the basic info. Okay. So in basic info section, what all options you will see. Okay, first you will see the requisition type, which we have already chosen in the first section, but it is just displayed here. So the customers, these are the kind of things, which we can expect from our customers. The customer says that, Ravi, since we have this field in the previous section, I don't want to see this field here. So then, we just hide this field. Okay, these are some things, which the customers normally ask. And then, we just, what we do is we just hide those fields, from the screens. That's it. Using the Design Studio, we just hide those fields. So that's why, we will be looking at, Design Studio as well as part of the job requisition topic. So next we have the requisition title. So what is the requisition title? So this is the requisition title, right? This value is what will be displayed to the external world. Okay? So when you post the requisition in the career site, right, then this is the name which you will see in the external career pages or the internal career pages. Okay? So let's say customers, right, they will have different kind of naming conversions for the position. For example, this is like barback hyphen vision visto OH001. It doesn't look user friendly. Okay? And when the candidate search for this, or when the candidate sees this requisition, they will not know what this requisition is all about. Okay? But ideally, this requisition is for a business analyst. Okay? But internally, we may have different kind of naming conversions, right? So what I'll do is in the requisition title, I just put business analyst. Okay. So this is how, this is the purpose of the requisition titles. Okay. So what should be, what is the title the external candidates has to see is what we put in the requisition titles. Okay. Next, we have the number of openings. Since we are creating this requisition using a position, right? Every position will have an, head count. Okay. The head count value is automatically displayed here. Okay. When I say head count, the available incumbents. Then it would be automatically displayed here. The recruiters can go ahead and make changes to this count. Okay, if they require, they can able to make changes to this count. And we also have one more option here, which is unlimited. When I click on this limited here, you see this unlimited. When I choose unlimited, then the number of openings, the number field gets inactivated, disabled. So what will happen is you can hire n number of candidates in this particular position. Okay? So that's the purpose of this particular field. But if you choose the number of openings as limited, and then you can just mention like let's say 5 openings. And next you have languages. So this is the place where you have to choose what are languages you want this requisition to support. Okay? So because you wanted to provide the translations, right? So if you do not choose any other language, then you will not have an option to provide the translations. So that's the purpose of this. And once we click on continue, you will see the hiring team. So hiring team basically comprises of, the hiring manager, recruiters, and the collaborators. So we can, the user, whoever is creating the requisition, right, their name would be defaulted as hiring manager. Okay? So here in this case, it is Curtis Fetty who is creating, hence the name is defaulted. But if required, you can always change it. Let's say I choose someone with I choose Ajay Kumar. So once I change in hiring manager, we get this warning. So it says like, do you also want to change the department, legal employer, primary work location of the job requisition of this particular hiring manager? The reason why we are getting this, warning pop-up is because we are creating this requisition using a position, right? So all these informations, right, will be defaulted from position. And if the hiring manager is from different, if the hiring manager has different details, so if you wanted to, change all the requisition, offer informations to that of hiring manager. If you choose yes, then those values will be automatically changed as per the hiring manager's assignment information. If not, you can just click on no. And this has been, another standard request from Oracle, right? This particular pop-up which we saw, right? Oracle does not want that pop-up to be displayed. Oh, sorry, many customers does not want this pop-up to be displayed. And we have already raised, multiple requests with Oracle, to hide those, to hide that particular ones. But we are yet to get some responses from Oracle. So they say like, they will do that in the future releases. So once next we choose the recruitment. I'll just search for Curtis Fetty. Okay. And next we have collaborators. Who are the collaborators? Let's say in real-time scenario, what happens is not only one recruiter will work on the requisition. There'll be like, few more junior recruiters or few more, people who will be assisting the recruiters, for this particular requisition, right? Then those people are called as collaborators. So you can just add in collaborators here. And you can create collaborator types, like, you can have different kind of collaborator types. These are like, which we need to create in the common lookups. Okay? So, for example, in one of my customer, what they done is they have created a collaborator type interview collaborators. Okay. So whenever we wanted to create an, whenever we wanted to schedule an interview for a candidate, right, we just, inform the same to the interview collaborators, and then they will be coordinating with the candidate and the interviewer for scheduling of the interviews. So similarly, you can create a number of collaborator types. And once you choose the collaborator type, you have to choose who is that collaborator. Okay. I'll just choose some, collaborator here. And I can choose another collaborator type, and I have to choose that particular collaborator. And we can keep adding n number of collaborators. There is no limitations on that. Once it's done, I'll just click on continue. Next, we are landing on the requisition structure. In the requisition structure, we have to choose what is the recruiting type of this particular requisition. So these are the values. These are like, standard values. You can always go ahead and, customize it, add it, or rename, based on your customer needs. Okay. Let's say I choose professional. And if you remember, based on this recruiting types, like, you can contact, this recruiting type is available as in context in certain content items. And then this will also be available as an, context in, candidate selection process, job application flows, everywhere you can use this as a context here. Next, you have organization. Okay. So what is this organization? And where do this list of values comes up? Any idea, team, where do this list of values coming from?
Organization hierarchy, basically whatever organizations we have created as part of core HR.
Okay, that is true. But which, let's say there are 5 organization, trees in your organization. Which organization tree is picked up here? See, this is how, the interviews would be. Okay. So when you go for an interview, or, when you go for a customer project, right, the customer says, what values are coming up here? I don't want these values to come up. This is a wrong organization, then in what we do is like, we have to choose the right organization. But where do we choose? Hmm? That is the next, critical question, right? If you remember, I'll just go to setup and maintenance. Okay, if I just go to setup and maintenance. And if I go to recruiting and candidate experience, enterprise recruiting and candidate experience, here you see this recruiting organization tree. This is the place where you choose which organization tree to be used here. Okay. So this is where you have to choose. Okay. Once I choose here, then those particular organizations will be displayed here. Okay. So let's say I choose the Tata Group. And if you remember, if you notice the primary location, right? I did not choose the primary location, but it is automatically populated. And job family, job function, these 3 values are automatically populated. Any idea how it is?
Because when we were creating the acquisition, we have selected position. So on that position, this particular job family would have been added.
Exactly, yes. So this job family, job function is, it comes from the position, okay? But is this fields which is available in the position? No. These are the fields which are available in your job, okay? And your position is inherited by a job, right? And these informations are fetched from the job which is inherited in your position, which in turn, which you have used in to create this particular requisition. And then the primary location that comes from your position. Okay? And if you require, you can add, other locations as well. Okay? And if you require, you can change your job family and job function. So once you enter all these details, I'll just click on continue, which will take me to the details page. So here I can choose worker type, whether I want to hire an employee or not. And then here, if you notice the regular or temporary, full-time or part-time, these values are also automatically populated from the position and the inherited values. And education level is also available in the position. Since there is no value choose, we don't see that value here. Okay. So next we have work requirements. So you can just choose all these work requirements, okay? And travel required, domestic travel frequencies. So any values for which it is available in the position or job, right? Those would be automatically defaulted. If those values are not available in the job, then job or position, then we have to manually enter those details. And the next section we have is the posting descriptions. Okay? So if you remember, we talked about the posting descriptions, when we talked about the content library as well. Okay? So we have created this posting description. So what happens is once I choose this posting description, the values will be automatically populated. Let's say if I wanted to enter some custom posting description, I just select this checkbox and then I can enter some custom descriptions. And if I wanted to have a separate description for internal candidate and external candidate, all I have to do is I have to just uncheck this checkbox and then I can enter. I can choose a separate posting description for external candidate, or I can enter a custom posting description for external candidates. So this is all about, the posting description. Okay. So what we'll do is, team, we'll just take a pause till here. Okay. So we have a lot of these sections to be covered. Okay. So what we'll do is we'll just take a pause here, and then we will, resume the session tomorrow, and then we'll complete from posting descriptions, and we'll go to the selection process, everything. For now, I'll just save this session as draft, okay, so that, we can resume it from tomorrow. So any other doubts or questions, team, on requisitions, or we can talk about it in tomorrow's session as well. Okay, so with this, we'll take a pause for today, and then we'll regroup tomorrow at 7 a.m. IST. So thank you so much, guys. You guys have a great day. Be safe, and let's connect tomorrow at 7 a.m.
Thank you.
Thank you.